Well, we're back again. Just finished another 2 episodes of Class.
I want it to stop.
It's alright, we've only got 4 more to go.
This is the halfway point, and it feels like I'm halfway to having a breakdown. Honestly, it doesn't help with the heat either. It's very humid today.
No, it is
Honestly,
rough.
I'm sweating like Michael Barrymore at a pool party.
Should we just kick off with episode 3? Because I don't know how to.
There is no introduction. Essentially, if you didn't see our video last week, we are very much into the swing of our Class review marathon retrospective.
Hell
is a very good way of summing it up. But yeah, like we said, Class is a spin-off from 2016. Nobody really talks about it anymore, and I can kind of see why, watching it back. Last week we reviewed episode 1 and 2, and now we subjected ourselves to episode 3 and 4. So episode 3, Night Visiting, I'm going to let you start.
So, it's actually quite a decent concept. You introduced to this monster called the Lankin, which is basically like one massive... they've described it in the show as like a heart with all these veins going out, reaching people, feeding on grief and sorrow and stuff.
Yeah.
Targeting families, obviously, who had lost some. So, obviously, in the show, Tanya has lost her father. So, the start of the episode, right up to the cliffhanger, you see Tanya reminiscing about her father.
The cliffhanger?
Well, sort of. The cold open ending thing. That.
Could just say till the intro.
Yeah, to the intro. Sorry. See, she's reminiscing about her dead father, and when you kind of pan out getting towards this opening credits, you see her dead father just sat in her room, which is a bit weird.
It's very creepy because it's quite a sweet little montage. I think the song makes it a little bit too cheesy, but it's sweet. You see how Tanya's parents met at Ponte Lido
Pool.
Yeah,
Let's go with pool.
Big outdoor swimming pool in the park in Pontypridd, which is about
2 minutes that way.
Yeah. Oh, we're just giving away our location. Not that anyone cares. But yeah, we're very close to that, so it's quite cool to see a Doctor Who universe location this close. There's a couple other ones in Doctor Who as well down there.
We won't be able to film there.
No, I feel like if... I don't know why your brain even went there, to be honest. That's a bit scary. Didn't ever cross my mind, to be honest, filming in a swimming pool.
Like, it is hot and my mind's not thinking, alright?
I mean, that's fair enough then, isn't it? No, you don't. You're such a liar. Yeah, I mean, it's quite an eerie start, really, where you have the quite movie flashback, and Tanya's there on the anniversary of her dad's death, and then all of a sudden he just appears out of nowhere.
Yeah.
Just sat in the corner of her room, and it's quite eerie to start off with, and she's very much like, Dad.
Yeah.
As he would be. I don't know why I reenacted that like it was something unusual, but... It's so hot. It's so hot
really
today.
Bloody boiling.
Why did we choose to film this today?
So when I was doing the notes and you saw the tentacle things for the first time, just start of like flying around the place, I did put it down as Stranger Things tentacle thing. Because that's the only thing I could think of is the vein. That's what it reminded me of, was the veins in Stranger Things.
Yeah, they do look a bit veiny.
Yeah,
and like also like vines off like a big tree or something, and they call it like the main log stump.
It's the main trunk.
Trunk.
I think it is. Yeah. All the vines go back to the log, or is how it was described.
Yeah, and essentially Tanya sort of has been very isolated because it's the anniversary of her dad's death. She's sort of finding it hard to cope. And Ram tries calling her because he needs help with his homework, and he's still coming off as a bit of a knob. Even though he's probably one of the more well acted of the cast, his character is so unlikable.
It does change.
Yeah, but
it does change throughout the episode. I do kind of warm to him a bit towards the end of the episode. A little bit, but
I just thought in the start, I just found it really weird because he phones up April and was like, "Did you understand the physics homework?" And they talk about Tanya, and he's like, "Oh, well, she's more my friend than yours." And it's like, she's also 14.
Yeah.
Which is, I thought it was a bit creepy.
Yeah, it really is.
I try to like the man, but he's there, they all look older than they are anyway, but he especially looks like he's 18, 19. And he's like, "Yeah, but this 14-year-old, she's more my friend than yours." I mean, I don't want to say alarm bells, but alarm bells.
The way the Lankin seems to kill people is described in the show later on as a chameleon type of thing, as one big tongue extended out to a victim, and then they've...
Hello.
Yeah. And the victim then has to consciously agree to reach out for their loved one, their deceased, like mother, father, loved partner, whatever. They've got to make that conscious decision to go with them. And then the Lankin just kind of yeets them off to tree land and they die.
Yeah, it's a very cool concept. I've got to give it that, you know. And it's like we said sort of in the last episode, really, the concepts behind that, the synopses out of context sound really good. I just think it just fails at the execution. This definitely, for me, episode 3 is much better than episode 1 and 2.
Yeah, 100%.
I really didn't enjoy that. But this is, you know, it has some great moments. It's quite atmospheric, you know, where Ram and April are on the phone and he sees Rachel, and then Rachel just pops up at the screen. Like, it's quite a authentic, you know,
Jump scare.
Yeah. Effective. That's what I don't know if I said authentic. Yeah. It's heat. But then, you know, there's still glaring issues. I can't talk today. There's still glaring issues with the dialogue. You know, for me, it's the bit where, you know, I think they're talking about the Ram's getting a knock at the window, isn't he? Before the Lankin version of Rachel comes through the window, and he's getting these knock. And April's like, "You should really see what that is." And instead of going, "Oh, you're right," or "No, I don't want to," he just turns around and is like, "Screw you! I don't have to do what you tell me." And it's like, bruh, chill out.
Dude, she's doing you a favour, and you're gonna bonk her in the next episode. Like, calm down.
Let's not get ahead of ourselves, because then when, you know, April is scared by Rachel, her response is, "Holy Mother of Kanye." Nobody talks like that.
Yeah.
Which is a theme that comes up in this show, but, you know.
Yeah, we
And
do.
I think for me, the placement of this episode is quite weird, because to do it in episode 3, I don't feel like we know the characters well enough yet for them to be, like, you know, this is a big character piece at the end of the day, but I feel like we don't know enough of the characters, and it doesn't feel very impactful for it to come this early. But at the same time, the fact that they're all separated really, you know, gives them a chance to breathe and develop a little bit. But the thing is, I just don't feel like they do. They're still basically the same people. That you just learn a bit more about their backstory. It doesn't really push them forward. It's just like, this is what happened before.
Yeah, I'd say April comes out of this with the most of that character development. Maybe the prince.
Yeah, I mean,
but like all that leads to is April kissing Ram in a bus shelter, surrounded by these Stranger Things tentacles.
Yeah,
and yeah, it's just kind of left there for the episode, really.
I think it's quite interesting how
nice.
they finally give Tanya a bit of her own, because she's sort of set up as the super genius. You know, she's 2 years ahead of her. Yeah, she's in sixth form at 14. And she's, you know, she's made out to be this big, clever genius, but she doesn't really do that in the last episode. She does it to an extent in the first one, but not in the second one at all. And then this one, it's funny to see how Ram, when he sees Rachel, his immediate reaction is to scarp her and run off and not face that at all, whereas Tanya tackles it head on, which I thought was quite interesting, to be fair. But I was more interested in Charlie and Mateusz this whole episode than I was anything else. I think they're my favourites, those two.
Yeah.
I think they're
just that line, innit?
Yeah, I mean, we'll get to that in a second, but like, I feel more about Charlie and Mateusz than I do about the others, which is weird considering Charlie's an alien. But you know, their whole character, and they speak like actual characters. Charlie sounds more like a human teenager than the human teenagers do.
Yeah.
You know, and Mateusz as well. And he's shown to be he's a Polish immigrant, you know, his English first language isn't even English, but he still sounds more natural, and I'm more interested in their relationship and how it grows and the conflicts between Mateusz, you know, being like, well, my family have kicked me out now for being
having
gay.
A boyfriend, like,
but my boyfriend is also an alien, and I've got to try and deal with, you know,
that, you know,
admitting to his sexuality and running off from his family, but also the fact that his boyfriend's an alien.
Yeah. And it deals with the topic in a very good way, I think.
I thought, you know, because this, I mean, was something where people are speaking like, Holy Mother of Kanye. It's very, you know, even April's reaction to Charlie being gay in the first episode, where she's like, oh my God, of course you are. Oh!
Why wouldn't you be?
Yeah. You know, whereas this, it feels a lot more like they feel like real characters.
Yeah, it's a lot more authentic.
And then, you know, we have so April and Ram basically dealing with the main investigating, running around and everything. Tanya's dealing with seeing and speaking to a vision / thing of her father. And what I like about it is that her dad doesn't feel like, oh, I'm definitely your dad. It feels like this could be him. Obviously we know it isn't, but it's like he's more of a conduit for the Lankin rather than just possessed. Oh, spirit, I am a spirit. It feels like it's him talking on behalf of the alien, if that makes sense. Yeah. It feels quite natural, which is weird. But yeah, obviously Quills has a vision of her sister as well. I've got to say, right, fair play to the 12th Doctor for rescuing these two and finding them a very, very nice flat.
Yeah, I know. Can you
They've
sort
got a
us out,
lovely
please?
house. You know,
Capaldi, sort us out, please.
You know, even Charlie's little bedroom's got a nice big bed. He's got a big Apple Mac there, a nice big telescope, just to rub it in.
I know.
But it's just a nice... I don't know why that came to me, but it just, you know, it did.
Yeah.
But yeah, Ram and April just feels really weird. It's so, like, out of
left field, isn't it?
Yeah, you know, he's barely had a chance to, like, grieve his girlfriend, who was brutally murdered in front of him, by the way.
Yeah, like, her blood was all over his face.
A big alien rock thing ran her through with a sword, and he got splashed with ketchup. Because that's what it looked like, let's be honest. But all of a sudden, him and April are like, let's get it on.
In a bus shelter. Classy. Very, very South Wales, to be honest.
Yeah, I know, you can tell it's from here. Yeah, it's just, I feel like it's so weird for him to suddenly be over here and all be, like, obsessing over... Even in this episode alone, he's just seen a vision of his ex-girlfriend, his dead ex-girlfriend, and now he's like, oh, but don't worry, April, I'm here for you. He's just, I just don't like it. Don't feel right. And again, you know, we learn a bit more about the two of them in terms of, we find out about April's dad, who was drunk, and he tried to run himself and the others off the road on a motorway, paralysing April's mum, so he's been in prison for a while. I'm sure that wouldn't lead to anything. But we also learn that April likes folk music, which, you know, take a drink every time that gets mentioned. And at one point, there's just an awful line where they're working out what it is, and, you know, April's sort of putting it into a folk music context, and she's contextualising this very weird alien event. And instead of Ram being like, oh yeah, right, fair enough, he's like, well, I've heard more about folk music in my last half hour than I have in my entire previous life. And I'm pretty sure I quoted that word for word as well, because it was a really shit line of dialogue. But yeah, we get, you know, Charlie and Mateusz then find Quill and his sister, and obviously Quill can't use any weapons or anything, and it's tempting her with her gun, because she, you know, can grab the gun and then she can...
Yeah, Charlie ends up stabbing the Lankin with a screwdriver.
I did find that
and
quite
secateurs.
Funny. I did find that bit quite funny, which is like, go and get a big knife, and he comes back with a little flathead screwdriver and a pair of secateurs. I don't like knives, which doesn't really make any sense. I mean, I suppose it does.
And then he goes around swinging a knife like 5 seconds later.
That's what made me laugh, is because he's so like, I don't like knives,
but I'm going to use one anyway.
But like, I kind of get it, you know, it's a humanoid sort of form there rather than cutting down some trees, essentially. Yeah, and it does sort of add to the whole, like, he's essentially a refugee. You know, and it sort of adds to his trauma from that. You know, it gives us a bit more insight into that. However, I just thought the resolution to this episode was a bit piss poor. It's so obvious that it's just going to be a case of like, no, I will not join you. I refuse you. I will pile you with my negative emotions, and you will go goodbye and back into the bumhole of time.
Yeah,
if we're still calling it that.
Yeah, Quill drives a bus as well, and like basically he yanks Tanya's dad out of the room with a bus. I mean, as you do.
You made a good point though, because you said she can't use weapons, but she can drive a double-decker bus into things.
And I was just like, technically that is using a weapon.
I just kicked the table then.
But then you did kind of like make sense that Charlie was kind of in danger. He was in and around these vines.
Yeah, you know,
that were definitely not moving.
Charlie. Yeah,
and that were not going to cause any harm because he was not in the house about to die like Ram and April.
Yeah, and I found that the bit where Jasper gets pulled out the window and starts dissolving away, that was quite gruesome.
Yeah,
in his, you know, you see his whole head melt basically, and I was like,
but like I think they got the balance of decent story and the horror side of it quite good on this one.
Yeah, I mean, I think for me the thing that lets us down is April and Ram's relationship.
Yeah,
and that's like the centre focus of the whole episode, because really it should be Tanya's episode.
Oh, 100%. If this was Tanya focused, and then like there was a few little B plots going on around, but
like the last episode is Ram's episode. Yeah. This should have been Tanya's episode, and it kind of is to an extent, but it's overshadowed. They do too much of the
Ram and April,
and it doesn't really, you know, that feels like, because that's such a focus of the next 2 episodes, it doesn't really need to be here as much, and this should have been Tanya's
standout episode where she's the main focus.
And I think she was alright in this, to be fair. I mean, I don't think Tanya's that bad, to be honest with you.
She's one of the more tolerable characters, I think.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I think it's April and Ram I can't get on with them, which is why I really can't get on with the next 2 episodes. But one thing that did make me laugh at the end is when they're all having their little cheesy team bonding moment. It's like, oh, we did it together as a team, and Quill just walks off and she's like, I'm going to be sick.
Quill is the most relatable character in this entire show.
One more thing I will say, though, is how I genuinely think the parents are really sound in this. Like, quite often you'll get shows where, they've got parent problems or daddy issues or whatever. And, all right, April's dad, he's not so sound, but we'll get onto that later. But, like, the ones that we've seen...
Neither is Tanya's.
We've met Ram's dad, who seems sound as heck.
A bit pushy on the football thing, but when you get to spend... Like, when he's introduced to the whole alien threat thing, it kind of mellows him out and he becomes tolerable.
Yeah, but that's the thing. He's doing it from a place of love at first, and then he understands
why everything's happening the way it is.
Yeah, and April's mum is very caring and everything after everything that they've gone through. The two of them are a strong family unit, and I think even Tanya's mum, going from this sort of she was a bit of a stock character in the first episode, being like, "Why are you doing? You should be doing your homework and everything. Why are you video chatting boys?" Where in this she feels really genuine, and there's quite a lot of warmth between her and Tanya, which is quite nice.
Yeah, but that lovely moment where they're sat with the photo of Tanya's dad.
Yeah. And
they're just both staring at it, and they say, "Oh, this is how I really want to remember him," with that smile.
Yeah, because it's so really easy to do things like this where they're, you have a death of a parent or a loved one or whatever, and the characters that immediately pushes them apart, because that does happen in life, and it's quite nice to just see that, all right, what they've gone through is awful, but they're still really close, and they still got that sort of family unit even without her dad, which is quite nice. So
no, it is lovely.
Yeah. Overall, episode 3, improvement on episode 1 and 2. Still a couple of issues for me, but overall, definitely my favourite.
Definitely an improvement, yeah.
Yeah. It's, cool ideas, quite dark, quite well directed in places, but just some bits of dialogue and some of the acting just needs
a little bit of tightening up.
Yeah. Anyway, should we have a quick break? Because I need a glass of water.
Yeah, so do I.
We'll be back after this short... Well, we can't even do musical interludes anymore.
There we go.
Okay then, episode 4, Co-Owner of a Lonely Heart. Another pun title. I actually quite like that one, it's quite good.
Yeah.
It's a good song, that's why. First of a two-parter, which is unusual for a series with such a short episode count. It starts off with the Shadowkin trying to fix the Shadowkin King's... King of the Shadowkin?
Yeah.
They should have really thought of something
King
more
of the Shadowkin.
Yeah, they didn't think of that. But they try and basically repair his heart and basically end up making the link between him and April stronger.
Yeah.
But I've got to say, I thought the audio mix is terrible, because I can barely hear what the Shadowkin is saying sometimes. That's basically what it sounds like. They're just going, "Oh yes, your heart is still very strong." You're like, I don't know what you're saying. But they'll say...
Do you want to cuddle?
Let's not get there yet. I'm not prepared for that. Yeah, Ram and April, still very weird, very much in the sort of the talking stage, as it were.
Hang on. You've overlooked the fact that April destroyed her couch with Shadowkin's sword as a result of that bond.
Oh, I forgot about that.
Yeah, so she's just in the cold open. She's there. She slashed open a sofa, and she's just casually holding the sword of the Shadowkin.
Yeah, so there's obviously this link is now getting stronger, and they're trying to sort of fix this before it all goes horribly wrong.
Yes. But
Ram and April is still very weird.
Yeah.
I thought it's, it still just feels really unnatural. Considering how awful he was speaking to, even in the start of the last episode, being like, "I have to do anything you tell me. Shut up about folk music. And now it's all like, "I will protect you." But there's basically two parts to this. There's April's story with her and the Shadowkin's link getting stronger, and also the return of her dad from Her Majesty's pleasure. Did you just... you get your head out of the gutter.
It's the first time I've ever heard that, to be fair.
You've never heard serving Her Majesty's pleasure?
No. Never mind. Anyways, carry on.
So we got that. There's also these weird petals that are starting to invade, and they're biting people, and as soon as they have a drop of blood, they're multiplying quite rapidly and exponentially. We also meet the new head teacher, Dorothy Ames.
It's a bit strange.
Yeah, it feels to me with this, it's like there wasn't enough for one episode for the Shadowkin Hearts stuff, and there wasn't enough for one episode for
the leaf stuff.
But instead of just giving them their own separate episodes, they've just smashed them both into a two-parter.
Yeah.
And in fact, it's really weird. Surely, if it were me, I'd have just done Shadowkin, Petals, instead of making a two-parter out of half a story.
Or done enough for the Shadowkin to make that two-part of a season finale.
Yeah, I mean...
Which would make sense, because it does feel like we should be getting towards the climax of the season finale by this point.
Yeah, speaking of climaxes... Can't believe I just said Kobe. Yeah, before he gets that, actually.
Yeah.
You know, it is weird how they've just sort of slotted it into this mid-season thing. I can kind of see why, but at the same time, it's just a bit odd structurally. This is the thing. One of my main issues with Class, not just the dialogue and the poor acting, is the structure just feels so weird. Like, it doesn't feel like it's at the part to do this big sort of climactic battle midway through the season. And I know it's not the end of it. You know, spoiler alert. Obviously, we're only doing episode 4 here, so we're only looking at the first part. But yeah, I think what I do like though is that Charlie and Mateusz have a bit more of a conflict because Charlie finds out that the Cabinet of Souls is still full, and it's not just that; it can be used as a weapon and also a way to bring him the Rhodians.
Rhodians, yeah.
Bring the Rhodians back, so that creates a bit of conflict. And Mateusz isn't like outright like, "This is awful. You shouldn't do that." He sees where Charlie's coming from. He understands that, you know, Charlie wants his people back, but he also knows at the same time that would cost
an entire species.
An entire species at the same time. And there is that conflict, and he's like, but you wouldn't do it though, would you?
It's saving one genocide with another.
Yeah, essentially. And it's, you know, I really like Mateusz. I don't know why he's given so little to do, because for me is my favourite character, I think.
Yeah.
I think he's just so sweet and he's so genuine. You know, you can't help but sort of feel for him a bit, especially with everything he's got to deal with. I did find it very weird that Tanya did approach them both after Charlie sort of walked off, because it's parents' evening and Charlie's like, I want to go to parents' evening. And instead of just being like, well, that's a bit weird, you can never, you know, she says like, well, no, I'll tell he's an alien, isn't it? Haha. Yeah, funny, leave it at that. What does she do then? She asks Mateusz if he has an alien penis.
Yeah, it is a bit strange.
Not the kind of conversation. I mean, someone's probably asking that conversation, but I don't think.
Yeah, but
it
doesn't need to go on TV. To be honest, I don't think they could have like avoided that heavily, and it wouldn't have made any difference.
Like, what did she expect? Did she expect this like 17, 18-year-old lad to break down?
Have a fire hose, like.
Did she expect this 17-year-old? I'm leaving that in. To break down like the biology of his boyfriend's genitals, like
when he doesn't understand the biology itself.
I mean, I'm not getting into the specifics of it.
No, I am.
Tanya in this situation.
I'm tired.
I'm comfortable being like, no, let's not. This is right. We've never mentioned genitals on this channel once. We've mentioned it 3 times in this one video.
Damn you, Class. It does get a bit like, because we were eating dinner for the second episode, because why not? And I wanted to throw my food up during that exchange. While April's telling Ram after they've been sent home after April. Oh yeah, April sees her dad again after prison, and Shadowkin kind of possesses her, I guess is the word, or the link's there, and she pulls out the swords again and threatens to kill her dad.
It seems to be like the heightened emotion seems to link it more, which is, you know, fair enough.
Yeah, it is a heart, in fairness, it's keeping them linked.
Because she has that really cringy outburst in the history lesson, doesn't she, where they talk about, and she's, you know, gives a really weird, and I know it's obviously not here, it's the Shadowkin side of here, but just to hear it be like, old soldiers should be ready to die, and if you're not ready to die, then you're a rubbish soldier and stuff, and it's like...
Yeah, it's just like, that's not how people talk.
Yeah.
But yeah, so after that, Ram takes her home, and...
Takes her home.
And then they have this dialogue, which is just cringy as hell. Again, you don't talk like that in real life. Don't put it in the show.
Yeah, what does he say? Because it's something
it was,
about
it was
my heart, isn't it?
He's got my heart, and it's like, oh, that's one battlefield the Shadow King's never gonna win, or something like that. I was just like, oh, shut up.
But even like,
shut up and
she
just
points out that he's cheesy.
Leave. Yeah,
and just because you're pointing out that your characters are cheesy, it's still cheesy.
It's beyond cheese. It's enough to make you throw up.
Yeah, you can't like be like, oh, that's so cheesy. Yeah, it's still awful dialogue. You can't just acknowledge that it's awful dialogue and move on. But unfortunately they do, and I wish they hadn't, because then we get the, you know, Ram and April sleep together. But this is felt. This is felt by the Shadowkin leader, and he essentially gets on with his like
subordinate. I guess is the only way.
Prince, Queen, whatever.
No. He promises her space on the throne next to him if she sorts his heart out.
Yeah, because that's obviously not a typical play on like men are evil and they'll just lie to you to sleep with you and everything, is it? That was very subtle. Thanks for that, Patrick.
No, that was after the heart. That was after the heart thing, wasn't it? I don't know.
I don't know. It's all just blended into
one.
So
no, the bit we were on about is just before she starts putting that heart thing into April, because
yeah. No, that's fair. But yeah, when April and Ram are sleeping together, we cut to a scene of the subordinate Shadowkin
And the
straddling the Shadow King.
Yeah.
And he
utters the words you would never expect to come from a monster that is so keen on killing everything.
It's the
Can we have a cuddle?
Yeah, but it's before that as well, where he's like, "Is this not doing it for you?" And it's like, "Oh, this is." I know what they're trying to do. They're trying to make it funny, but they've got this really sort of like quite, romantic as class gets, scene between April and Ram, and then it's cut with the whole like monster go, "Did I not do it for you?" And I honestly wanted the ground to swallow me up. I remember it's weird because it's almost like I blanked that from my mind, because obviously I know that April and Ram slept together because they end up together and everything, but I don't remember. To the extent of... I know that the Shadow came, connected during that scene. God, it's one of the worst things I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah.
That scene.
It's a bit cursed, isn't it?
It's sort of... By that point, I was like, I just don't care what happens now. You can kill April, I really don't care. I know what happens because I've seen it, but... I remember it's this point in the rewatch where I'm like, oh, this is shite, isn't it? It is shite on a stick. But there's, It's up there with Tortured Series 1 being we don't really know what our vibe is yet. We just know we're a bit more adult than normal Doctor Who. So
there's going to be a lot of alien sex.
And shagging.
Yeah, that is literally it. And just after this rather eventful situation in April's young life, who enters the room gracefully? April's mum, and Ram is just stood there holding a pillow. Oh, it's just disgusting to watch, to be fair.
That's 4.
Yeah, April's mum refuses to acknowledge Ram is sort of there at the start of their conversation at the table.
I would also refuse to acknowledge Ram if he was there because I don't like him.
No,
and I see where she's coming from.
Yeah, and it's it is...
No, I mean, I get where April's mum is, I get her point of view. Her daughter's meant to be at school getting an education, and she finds him at home with some lad that she's never mentioned before. But it's just such an... I know the scene is meant to be awkward, but I really don't... I don't
It's
care
overly done.
enough to, it's so over the top. And it's like... This just doesn't fit with the theme and the narrative of the rest of it. This doesn't match the tone at all. We've got zombie blood sucking petals and alien shadows, and she's there did you use protection?
You literally see these petals eating a squirrel.
Yeah, this tone it's so off. It's like it wants to be adult, but it wants to aim to teens, but also younger teens at the same time, and it doesn't really know what it's doing. And it's just there are moments of, I wouldn't say brilliance, but there are moments of quality within class. But there aren't a lot in this episode, I'll be honest.
But obviously after this encounter, Ram leaves April and her mum to discuss things and talk stuff over. And then decides that he's actually going to call everyone else and say, look, April's in danger. We got to help her. Which is nice, good thing to do. Fortunately, Ram walks past April's dad. Who kind of just... At this point, it's stalking. He's been court ordered to stay away. He ignores it. And the sight of him really angers April again. And it's at this point where he's gone back to the house. April's flipped a lid and is being overtaken again, I guess, by the Shadow King.
Yeah, she gets a bit swordy.
Yeah, she gets a bit happy with the swords and starts going for her dad again. In front of her mum as well, which is a bit strange.
Yeah.
It's a bit harsh. You can see the panic on her mum's face. The way her mum's the acting for the mum in this is actually quite good. I enjoyed it.
Yeah, I just feel like the rest of it was so
Crap.
melodramatic. It just lost me completely. I wasn't bothered because it's so everyone's screaming at the top of their voice, and there's all this camera close. There's the close-ups of April where it's all be
and she's just stood there
yeah, it's all
what
slow
seems
motion.
like an eternity.
No, don't chop me up. And your mum's like, no, stop it. And everyone's like, April, what? Take a drink during that scene. Every time someone says April, you'd be hammered.
Yeah.
It's April, what are you doing? April. Why can you think of April?
Let's rewatch that scene and do that.
No, I don't ever want to watch this again.
No, I just want to get steaming.
I'd rather just go down the pub. But yeah, I think the cliffhanger is that April slices a new bumhole in time and jumps through, and then Ram takes a run up to do the exact same thing, and everyone's like, Ram, what are you doing? I'm like, at a guess, probably exactly the same as April, considering that's what she just did.
Yeah.
And everyone's there like, oh, what do we do?
Well, April was like, oh, I'm going to get my heart back. And Ram's like, oh, I can't just leave her. Oh, I said I'd defend her and all this stuff, chivalry and all that.
Yeah. Oh, but just before, though, she jumps through the bumhole of time that she's just slicing the garden. She restores her mum's ability to walk by, like, sticking her fist in her and putting magic powers. And I'm like, stop it. Do you see what I have to deal with? This is why so many things get cut. But she restores her ability to walk, basically, which is...
Nice.
I just found it a bit weird.
It was, yeah, and it was just like, oh, forgive me, Mum. So at the point of this happening, I generally thought, oh, she's going to rip her mum's heart out. This is nice.
Yeah, but there's nothing wrong with a bit of genuine disability representation there by having a disabled actor in a disabled role. You don't have to do the whole, like, I have magic powers, so now you can walk. It's just a bit... I found it a bit weird.
Yeah.
I just, I didn't get on with this episode at all. I mean, I preferred the B plot of the flowers and Quill and the new head teacher, and how does she know so much about her and Charlie? What's this folder? Because the folder's literally that she's got about Charlie literally says that he's a Rhodian and has escaped. And how does she know all about that? What will come of that? Oh, sorry, we've got to go back and watch an alien shag.
Yeah.
It's like
it's just all over the place, really.
It just doesn't know. It just meanders along for 50 minutes, but it felt like so much more. By the time we got to the cliffhanger, I thought, finally, because I thought that was never going to happen. I thought maybe they'd been edited on together or something, and I just missed it. But it was a drag, that one.
No, but the cliffhanger was all right. I quite enjoyed that. From what I've seen for the next time, it looks quite going to be a decentish episode. But I'm not going to get my hopes up for it, to be honest.
Oh, my poor boy.
But I just feel that this two-parter should be the bit where everything comes to a head at the end of the series, because this is the underlying plot through every episode, is this link between April and the Shadow King, and all this issue all these issues with the fabric of space-time. That is the underlying plot. Let that ride out, end of the series, sort it out. That's all you need to do. You don't need to sort it out mid-series, because then it's going to be a case of, great, we sorted out the big bad, what the hell?
Well, but to me, though, this is the thing. What I don't get is why that they clearly know that they haven't got enough in this to sustain a full series. That's why they've introduced this new head teacher. He's a bit weird and knows a bit. And I'd much rather just deal with the Shadow King now and then have the second half of the series be this new head teacher. What's her game? But
I don't like her. It's just something about her. I just don't.
She's a bit sus, isn't she?
Yeah, it's just like something bad's going to happen, and it's just going to be a reveal that it's her.
Do you remember how this ends?
No, I've erased a lot of this from my memory.
You've not seen it since first broadcast, have you?
No, it has been a long time since 2016.
It's going to get interesting.
I'm going to want to hate myself.
Yeah, I mean, it's your fault we're doing this, but hey, if you're enjoying it, come back next week and we're going to do episode 5 and 6, which is the second part of this, and Detained, I think. I can't remember. Anyway, we'll come back and do this, and then we only have to do it again, and we can get back on doing fun Doctor Who stuff, including some advert rewatch. We're going to do some more adverts. We've got a quiz coming up as our next subscriber milestone if we hit 750. So please, if you haven't already subscribed and you're enjoying this and you want to see me and Tom quiz each other while eating very hot sauce and probably cry.
Oh god, it's gonna suck.
We do go a bit all out for as all out as we can for our subscriber specials. So yeah, keep an eye out for that. We're gonna be dropping some other bits and pieces. The Warmaster series is still under construction.
Yeah,
which I feel like if we had a T-shirt, I could just put that out as merch at this point.
Yeah. With the 60th fast approaching as well, we will be doing some stuff along to do with that. Be it a rewatch of Summer Tennant's run. Probably a tier list. Most likely a tier list. And a review of the first ever episode of Doctor Who, or the first ever serial. Unearthly Child. I think it's only fair. It is interesting, to say the least, but to think that we've come from an Unearthly Child to where we are now. Yeah,
we all started off from a mild curiosity in a junkyard, and now we've got a spin-off where aliens are getting shagged. And on that
spin-offs actually, because Torchwood. But yeah, on that note, thank you for coming by. Please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, especially if you want to see us cry on camera for the 750 special. Yeah. That's all from us today.
It's so hot.
It is boiling. Stay safe, drink water, And don't take your dogs out in the middle of the heat.
Yeah, I'd say open a window, but it's not doing anything.
No, get a fan on.
Yeah. Bye, everyone.
Bye.